Hey there, welcome back to the pod. Today we're going to talk about the finals. Boston up 2-0. I'm going to jump right into it. In game 2, it dawned on me just how right Colton was in his prediction that the non-Luka minutes were going to be rough for the Mavs. The defense looks like they're really have zoned in on Kyrie and the role players. But going back to Dallas, there's a real chance for that to flip the script. Do you think it's going to be more of the same, or do you think they're going to be able to Kyrie and then we'll be able to get on track, Colton?
Well, we'll see what happens. But another thing that I should have brought up in the last video that I didn't say is, would you trust, because you brought it up in the last video, Kirby, you said Boston might shoot from three well enough, like once or twice, right, to beat Dallas. I trust Boston shooters way more than I trust the combo of Derek Jones and PJ Washington. I would rather everybody on that list, out on the Boston role player side, to shoot over the Dallas role players outside of Maxi Kleba. And that's what and we're seeing that. Guys like Drew Holiday, guys like Sam Hauser off the bench, even Porzingis in game one, he was a monstrosity. Uh Derek White, man, like it's just their shooters are crazy. And PJ Washington and Derek Jones Jr. have had a great playoff run, but I trust Boston shooters way more. I think that's coming to play. Kyrie, shout out to my buddy Kyle Reynolds here. We were having a nice discussion about Kyrie, but I just when Kyrie is the guy, and when he's not with the another guy that's better than him, I feel like he always shows this. This is the guy Kyrie is. Look at when Kyrie was the leader of a team, and so when he's faced with extreme adversity as the leader out there on the floor, more of the same from what I've seen from him in the past, which is he doesn't have LeBron with him, and when Luka's on the bench, what do we see? He swarms into the defense, or gets swarmed by the defense, gets smothered. Isn't that great of a pure point guard
Gets
passer?
gets sped up, it looks like to me. It looks like in the first two games he's been really sped up, awkward, not
Yeah.
very smooth with his dribble moves, and I mean a lot of that has to do with the defense getting into his space and forcing him one way or the other. But everything's been tough for him so far.
The crowd is getting to him. The crowd hating on him. And I think going in, like when he, put Sage on the Celtic logo and everything, and the Celtics are like 12-0 against him. Did you guys know Boston's record this year is like 78-20? They're not some like terrible team. Like they are good. So I think it'll be more of the same. I think Dallas will win one of these two at home, but I think Boston could win in five.
I'm going to admit to a little bit of, I think, West Coast bias. I think that this happens to a lot of people where you just see the guys in your conference play more, right? I mean, that's just everybody does, unless you're like an NBA TV guy who's watching 14 games a night. It's just the
We
Blazers
didn't
play more Western Conference teams.
we didn't see Boston challenged at all throughout the
No.
playoffs, too. That was another huge factor. They played nobody.
And so, I knew going into this series, it kind of dawned on me as we were getting ready to head into this series, like, yeah, Derek White and Al Horford are probably going to shoot better than Derek Jones and PJ Washington, or at least on the total, they were going to get more good looks. But what I kind of failed to consider is that three-headed monster of Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and
Drew
yeah, Drew
Porzingis or
Holiday.
Drew?
That
Either
those
one.
three guys, when they're like crisscrossing down the floor and running like a three-man fast break pattern, or just moving the ball and moving without the ball, that is more than Luca can do on his own. There's just no way around it. And then if you consider like Porzingis as almost going up against Kyrie in that game one at least as like the second best player on the team, I mean he outplayed Kyrie by a long shot, and they just have more talent. It just really is becoming apparent that they have more talent. Probably should have known that going in. Luca has just looked unstoppable, and I think I just slightly underestimated how good Boston was going to be on the whole. And they looked great in these first couple of games. That said, I don't think Kyrie's going to look this trash in Dallas. He looked really, really bad And that second game was not a blowout, but toward the end it started to get a little out of hand. But the second game was a pretty good game, and if Kyrie was playing Kyrie basketball, I think they may have won it. So if Luka keeps playing like this, which I have no reason to believe he won't, he's looks like the best player on his own still playing, and maybe of the whole season. And if he gets some help, they have a real shot. Even though the role players are proving that they are better on Boston, if Kyrie plays better than Porzingis, which I have to imagine he can do in Dallas, I think they have a shot to at least win a couple of games.
Game two was like a 3-point game in the final minute, and Kyrie played like trash all game. Obviously, Boston didn't shoot very well either in game two, but it was a close game. I think going back to Dallas, things could really change. I imagine Kyrie's going to play a lot better, and the role players in particular are going to play a lot better. Derek Lively really hasn't made a huge impact in game one or two. I think he'll do more in Dallas. I think Gafford will be better. PJ will be better. Um, and yeah, Boston, if they continue their shooting struggles, which they really have, even though they were able to win the games, they had stretches where they were missing. I think they start off like 1 for 12. I think they were like 4 for 20 something at some point. But Dallas is just shot so horribly too that it didn't really matter. Um, yeah, I don't know if Dallas is going to be able to win both of them in Big D, but I think they'll definitely get one of them. Um,
They
and
need it to be the next game, or else they're done.
yeah, and if they don't, I think if they only get one, they're going to be done either way. 3-1's going to be hard to come back from with this Boston team.
Well, so before the series, we talked about who is the three best players in what order, and you guys
Is Jaylen Brown
said
number 1 now?
no, but I
I'm just saying he looks good.
unironically, after this last series and this series, I am putting Jaylen Brown over Jason Tatum. And it's kind of about maybe it's because they're games and how aesthetically
Mentality
they
too.
play. Yeah, well, Jaylen Brown like goes downhill, goes to the rim, throws down huge posters, is super aggressive, right? Tatum, and it's part of how their games are. He kind of seems to float, and when his outside game's not going, he settles for like crossover step backs, kind of like Paul Pierce isms, where it's like not a dominating force on the game. He's still really good, but man, he's certainly better than Kyrie on both ends of the floor. So he might be the second best player in the series, and Tatum might be the third. I don't even know who's been the third best player this series so far. The Boston just has they come at you in waves. Like they
Drew
all have their
Holiday.
time.
I mean, Drew Holiday.
Drew's been
Honestly,
good.
the two best players in the series have been Jaylen Brown and Drew Holiday. And then you could throw
Luka's been good.
and then you could throw Porzingis in there too. Luka's been decent, but he hasn't really had a Luka game yet. He's kind of had moments
32 and 11 and 11. That's not a Luka game.
I in the finals, I would expect, he had mistakes in that game where he missed a lot of
Real
free
free
throws and
throws,
turnovers. That could have
turnovers.
easily been a 40-point game. That's a Luka game that I'm expecting in the NBA finals is a 40-point triple double and a win, which he, didn't get to those numbers. So he's obviously been good. You take his dominance for granted, just how much he's able to do. But I mean, the guys that are making the winning plays in the first two games were Jaylen Brown and Drew Holiday, really on both sides of the ball.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's what I was gonna
Drew
say.
Holiday in particular, my goodness.
Jaylen Brown on defense has completely surprised me. And I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, he's always been known as a good defensive player, but he has shut down. I've seen him shut down both Luca and Kyrie on individual plays, not consistently or anything like that, but like on individual plays, he's taken that one-on-one assignment against two of the best, most crafty ball handlers that the league's ever seen and has stopped them, either with like a shot clock violation, a travel, or a turnover, bad pass turnover. So yeah, it's been really impressive to watch, and kind of surprising.
Did you guys see the article? Because we're talking about Drew Holiday, Blazer legend, by the way, Drew Holiday. Um, there was an article that talked about the trade that brought Drew Holiday to the Celtics and about him getting traded from Milwaukee. He was, seemingly not very impressed or happy with how Milwaukee handled the trade, but he had a lot of praise for one Joe Cronin. and obviously why, right? Joe worked with Drew, and it sounded like Drew said he was very blessed that he got traded to Portland because Joe worked with Drew. And in the end, the Blazers got a lottery pick out of it, right? Out of that direct move. The Blazers got the 14th overall pick. So it worked out for the Blazers. It worked out for Drew. If Joe Cronin tilting this towards the Blazers, right? If the players view Joe Cronin as somebody that they can work with outside of maybe Dame, because Dame tried to strong arm his way out, right? That's nothing but good for the Blazers because sounds like Joe did Drew a solid, exactly what he wanted, and look where it's getting both sides. So good job, Joe.
Last night when I was watching Holiday play, I'm like, why did the Bucks even trade him for Dame? I know like at the time it was like everyone was like, no duh, Giannis and Dame, but it was not soon afterwards. And then throughout a lot of the season, I was thinking, I think Drew Holiday's a better fit in Milwaukee than Dame is. I mean, all year long, their biggest problem was defense, and that's because he was their defensive leader, their defensive captain. He was the guy that made all the big plays in their championship run. He's a clear born winner and a champion, and I think he's gonna has a good chance of winning another. Who do you think would be Finals MVP at this point? Jaylen Brown, probably.
Jaylen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
it's
a
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think there's a few reasons for it. I think that there's a little bit of a media narrative going on around Jaylen Brown right now too, that he's been somewhat like underappreciated. We were talking last night about the fact that he didn't make the All NBA first team and how he kind of used that as a chip on his shoulder to maybe propel some of this push that he has right now. Eastern Conference MVP, Finals MVP. And he's looks like he has a chip on his shoulder and is trying to go out there and just about single-handedly shut down Dallas's plans. He's picked guys at half court and thrown it down. He's
Let's pick
looked like
Luca at half court.
he's leading the team. He's getting the crowd engaged. He looks like this is his title to win if that's what ends up happening. So after 2 games, it would be him.
It's going to be really interesting to see what it looks like in Dallas because uh, Colton, your comment about Tatum being better on offense and defense than Kyrie is interesting. I wonder if it'll feel that same way after 2 games in Dallas. You know, obviously in the first 2 games, that was pretty clear. But if Kyrie starts having his, 30, 35 point performances like we've seen all playoffs long and Tatum keeps struggling from the three like he has been, I feel like that narrative could shift pretty quickly. And momentum is, that's a big part of basketball. It could shift really quickly. Um, just a play here or there in game 2, and things would be feeling a lot differently. So I don't think it's as much of a dominant performance as it may sort of have felt like in those first 2 games. Um,
The
and
first game was dominant.
they got it to 8 though at the third quarter. Obviously, it didn't last very long,
Yeah.
but they did figure some stuff out. It wasn't like it was a 20-point game the entire time. Definitely the majority of the game, but I
That first half was brutal.
yeah. But yeah, it's just gonna be interesting to see how it feels, what the momentum's like, if there's any shift in when they go to Dallas, because as we just know from a historical standpoint, this is when series can and have shifted dramatically. One that comes to mind is the 2006 finals, I think, when D Wade just completely took over. Dallas is up 2-0 in that series, and things changed. The whole momentum changed. It just felt one way and then completely flipped the other. So I don't know.
Ask Blazer legend DeAndre Ayton what happened in the finals a couple years, prior to this against the Bucks.
Yeah,
2
speaking of Drew Holiday.
2-0 and then uh-oh.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back. Maybe the finals will be over by the next time we see you. I don't think that'll happen, but it could. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.